Do you consider the 49ers offseason to be a success?
I mean, it's incomplete, right? They have to have this draft. They have a bunch of draft picks, but you can't help but notice that a lot of guys left and not that many guys came in. And so the question is, what are the Niners so confident? Are they confident in their incoming rookie class? Or are they really confident in last year's class? Like maybe that's the thing. That they really, really do. Because look at all the success they had last year with Banks, Talanoa Hufanga, Lenore, all those second-year guys who didn't really show much as rookies. Maybe the Niners feel they're going to do that again. Excuse me. Because really, this is a Super Bowl win-now team, and they lost a lot of guys, a lot of really important players. I mean, not like cornerstone players, but Menahue is a really good player. Jimmy Ward, Emmanuel Mosley. I'm not going to put McGlinchey in that class, but it's not like they got an upgrade over McGlinchey. So you could say that they took a step back, but at the same time, they got Javon Hargrave. That's a big upgrade. And where they're at, it's hard to get better in free agency. You already got such an expensive team full of veterans. I mean, I think what you could say is they didn't take a big step back like maybe Philly did. Philly lost Hargrave and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Now they have other D linemen, but they're definitely not as good as they were last year. So that's a positive for the Niners.
I think so. And I mean, this is a question where I haven't struggled with, but I've been a lot more hesitant to go one way or the other because you bring up a really good point. The 49ers lost more than they brought in, lost more key players, that is. Charles Omenahue's gone. Samson Ebukam is gone. Mike McGlinchey's gone. Yeah, Aziz is gone. Jimmy Ward is gone.
Emmanuel Mosley.
Emmanuel Mosley. Those are 6 really valuable contributors
quality
to
players
this team
that
are gone.
Yeah.
The point, though, is, to me, I view that, but I also view the way that the 49ers understood that some of these players, they were not going to have a chance to bring back. McGlinchey was as good as gone as soon as that market elevated over $10 million. He got nearly double that. Omenahue was the tough one. People thought he could be brought back. I also did. And the contract he got wasn't too expensive. 2 years, $16 million a max deal. I don't think that's that expensive.
I wonder if the arrest had something to do with it.
That is very true because the 49ers, after Reuben Foster, have kind of shied away from those, those type of players.
And the Chiefs don't.
The Chiefs don't. That's true.
Chiefs don't. So
Frank Clark,
because the Chiefs got a bargain, and the guy's 25, but we don't know what he did.
Exactly. And I mean, it's definitely tough in those situations. Maybe the 49ers wanted to wait till that process comes out. It's obviously not in Omenahue's best interest to wait the system out. And so there are questions. To me, though, I balance out the 49ers losing the players and the value that they bring, but also their understanding that they're losing their players. So the way that I look at it, have they done enough to insulate themselves at the positions where they've lost players to where their team can not necessarily be better than last year, but have similar results? Because the NFL is a year-to-year league. Teams understand that they have championship windows. The Eagles knew that last year. They pushed all their chips in, understanding how much worse they were going to get this offseason. I don't know exactly how good they're going to be this year, but I think in a way, they're retooling for next year. Why? Because when you lose a lot of players, you get compensatory picks. Jalen Hurts is going to be in the first year of his extension in 2 years. And, the extension really kicks in 2 years. That is the year, or next year is the year where you're going to have a huge draft class. You can utilize so many draft picks there in Philadelphia to take over some of the holes. And I think that that's the situation they're going forward. To me, I think the 49ers have done a solid job. I thought interior defensive line was really important to address this offseason. I thought Dalvin Tomlinson could have been a hit, but I mean, you went and got the best player on the market. I like him over Daron Payne. I do think Daron Payne got a contract that was overpaid for him. I think Hargrave's contract, you could say, could be overpaid, but when you look at it in the scope of how the guaranteed money is structured,
right.
I don't think it's too big of a deal.
The average per year is a little high for him, but the way the cap hits work out, it's not going to hurt the Niners. In fact, the first couple of years, he should be a bargain. Let me say it real quick. Is it a success? I look at it as partially. I went into the offseason saying they got to improve in both trenches. They got whooped in the trenches in the NFC Championship game on both sides. And so they improved on the D-line big time. Still think they need another edge rusher, but that's what they could get one in the draft. The offensive line, they did nothing. They re-signed McKivitz and Brendel. I don't think that's enough. And now it's they need a right tackle. They're not really in a position to get one who can play right away. So I feel like this is their offensive line, and I don't consider this offensive line like a Super Bowl offensive line. But, so I mean, when people say, is this team a contender? I mean, they have some pretender qualities, and the offensive line is one of them, in my opinion. It got worse.
Yeah, I think that that's fair to say. And when you talk about the offensive line, I want to talk to you about one player. The 49ers were active in the center market, right? There are a lot of names out there: Garrett Bradbury, Ethan Pochich, Bradley Bozeman, a lot of different names. Struck out in all of them, ended up re-signing Jake Brendel. How do you feel about that entire kind of move? Essentially, they went back to Brendel after all of the players re-signed, all the top four go back to Brendel. Did you think they should have signed a guy for a little more money? How'd you feel about that move?
It'd be nice to get an impact player at center, considering the two teams in the Super Bowl this year had impact players at center. And Brendel's solid, but he's not that. But the reason they brought him back to me is, what does Kyle value on his offense? Vets who know his system. That's very important to him. And Brendel has been here for a while. They've groomed him. He knows the scheme. The center has to make a lot of calls. I don't think they just want to start a rookie day one at that position. So I'm not surprised at all that they brought him back. And I've talked to Chris Forster about Brendel. Loves Brendel. I mean, he's been coaching him for years, going back to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fair. I think that's the thing where if you look at it, that's the reason why they bring him back. They understandably wanted an upgrade, which is I thought that the upgrade was there. They went after Garrett Bradbury, a guy who's younger, not cheaper, but he would have been there at a reasonable price. That's my preference. If they go after a guy like Garrett Bradbury, I thought he would have been the upgrade. But you also understand, I wouldn't say it's a bad signing, because you understand the value that Brendel brings in the continuity, because this isn't his first year with the 49ers. He's been here for a while now. He's been as a backup. I think he was a practice squad for 1 year, the backup to Mac for another year on the active roster, and now the starter. He's been here for a while, and he's been, more importantly, with Chris Forster since his days back in Miami when he was given a starting job. And so he's definitely had some good time with the system, and that's important.
And even though he's 30, he hasn't played a lot, so he doesn't have like a ton of tread on his tires, doesn't have a ton of injuries in his past.
Yeah. And more so, offensive linemen, normally you can play a little longer than other positions. They don't necessarily have as much tread, which is a benefit to, or a testament to the position.
And I mean, that's why they gave him a 4-year contract. I mean, congratulations, Jake Brendel. Yeah, that's a great story. The guy was on practice squads, and all of a sudden now he's got a 4-year contract as a starting center, and he flat out deserves it. I mean, that was a good signing, but still, the offensive line got blown up in the NFC Championship game, and you're thinking, like, how can it get better? Well, now it's got to be Banks and Burford have to improve. Like, those guys have to, and they might. And I don't really know what the expectation is for Cohn and McKivitz.
I agree. And I mean, when you look at I'll look at two factors. One, Jake Brendel's deal, 4 years, $20 million, but really it's a 2-year, $8 million deal. SF can get it out of it after 2 years.
There's no guaranteed money after 2 years?
Yeah. So to me, the way that I look at it, Brendel could be your guy, but I don't know if I'd hedge my bets that he is your guy for both of those years. And McKivitz's deal, I thought it'd be way worse. McKivitz's deal is a really team-friendly deal. After 1 year, there's nothing. It's really, after 1 year, it's okay. So to me, that doesn't signify.
They're Band-Aids. So they're Band-Aids. And the thing about the offensive line, to me, it's like the toughest position to transition from college and develop. It's almost like quarterbacks. Correct. It takes so much. The schemes are different. What you see from defenses is different, and the strength required is different. So I think it's probably best not to draft offensive linemen and that you have to start right away.
Starters.
That you have to. Like, if they're good enough, great. But otherwise, like, you know what? Let's sit this guy a year. I mean, that's what Philly does. That's what the Niners did with Banks. I think it's probably smart. Otherwise, that guy's going to struggle. Or you might want, what you could do is what the Niners did with Burford, is the rotation. That was actually really smart. I love that.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I just spoke about Garrett Bradbury. He was not good his first 3 years. He was average to below average. But 1 good year for an offensive lineman gets you a big contract, because guess what? It is tough to develop that position. You talked about Philly. Really, obviously, Juergens is in the waiting for Jason Kelsey. I mean, they've definitely done well with Mailata as well. You know, they've got a good developmental system. Same with the 49ers with Banks.
Yeah. And the Niners have this really good offensive line coach. Draft, 1 year ahead of time, in terms of need, and give him some athletes, please. I mean, he's doing a good job with the Colton McKivitzes of the world, but what could he do with some Jordan Mailatas? That's what I like about Philly, is they have a huge offensive line, but they're also really good athletes too. Like, can't the Niners find some guys like that? The Shanahans, going back to the 90s, have always gone for like these round 5, round 6 small offensive linemen. It's
Colton McKivitz.
Yeah, man. Like, I think you could do a little better.
I agree.